the Christ presence. We touch, agree, and we know together that it is so, and so it is. Amen and amen. Right, so good morning again. God bless you. How are you? You guys good? Ooh. To those of you watching via the live stream, bless you. We're excited that you're here this morning too. This is the final Sunday for the Making the Leap series. And I gave you pretty much the review of it on last Sunday. So if you want to get the review of the series, I want to encourage you to go back and revisit the lesson from last week. So this week I do want to read for you some words from Gay Hendricks. The book that we've been working from is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And in the 7th chapter, where he talks about solving the relationship problem, he writes this. He says, as you know by now, the essential move we all need to master is learning to handle more positive energy, success, and love. He says, instead of focusing on the past, we need to increase our tolerance for things going well in our lives now. I'm going to reread that. He writes, instead of focusing on the past, we need to increase our tolerance for things going well in our lives now. He says, if we don't learn how to do this, we suffer in every area of our lives. One area that suffers spectacularly is our relationships. As we bump into upper limit problems, relationships are one of the key areas that suffer greatly. In fact, he suggests, the greater the success you achieve, the bumpier your relationships tend to be. Now, I am not saying that I agree with that. But I am suggesting that there are probably some of us who are present here today or watching by stream or who watch this at some point later who has probably in your walk discovered that the better you did, the more success you experienced, the more consistently your life came into focus, the more difficult some of your relationships got. Right? Amen. Thank you. Thank you for the one witness. It says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, I'll take 2. But it doesn't just show up in, he calls it close relationships. And to be clear, he's talking about intimate relationships between you and your significant other. That's how he is phrasing it. But I believe there is value and benefit in expanding the way we see a thing. And so I don't see it just as a challenge in our, as he calls them, close relationships. I see it as a possible challenge in any of our primary relationships. Whenever we begin to experience success, there comes a time where the people who knew you at one level, they may have some challenges relating to you at a different level. I got a couple more witnesses. Excellent. I just want to make sure I'm talking to the right people. And so one of the things that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to experience an abundance of joy, an abundance of love, an abundance of success, an abundance of peace in every aspect and every area of our lives. I don't necessarily believe that your success has to cost you your relationships. If you understand how to manage your success and manage your relationships in a way that is healthy for all parties. Are you with me? And so what we want to do this morning is just take a look at how it is, what it is we can do in order to facilitate the health of the relational experiences as well as the big leaps we are intending to make, because your relationship with someone should not cost you your big leap. And sometimes it's just important to recognize, because every now and again, relationships, like everything else, have a certain vibration. And when you move and operate at a different vibration, it just naturally means that folk who used to operate at one level with you, when you start to vibrate at a different level, they can't get with you at that level. Are you with me? And so when that happens, there will be a natural breach or a natural break in the relationship. And even then, we are at choice. Even when the vibration is not at the same level, what we can decide to do is we can decide whether or not we will come back so that we can be with you. Are you with me? When two people walk together, one of the things that they have to decide, if they're going to walk together, they have to decide whether or not they will keep the same gait. Whenever two people walk together, if they're going to walk together, they must decide that they will match you stride for stride in order to stay with you. The moment that we are walking together and you slow your stride down, we can no longer walk together. And it's not that you're bad and I'm good, or you're better than me and I'm less than you. It's just that we are deciding that the gait of the stride, we're not going to keep the gait. Either I'm going to slow down or I'm going to speed up. But if we're going to walk together, what we must get clear on is the degree to which we will be in sync. Are you with me? And so what we have to do then is get some clarity and some specificity around whether or not we are in sync. See, sometimes your growth can also mean outgrowing the relationship. Sometimes the people who knew you back when can only see you through the lens of what they used to know you as. Are you with me? And so when you can only see me through the lens of what I used to be, you won't be able to walk with me if I'm something new or something different, or if I've grown beyond that space. Are you with me? And so Dr. Abraham Maslow wrote that one can choose to go back toward safety or forward toward growth. He said, but growth must be chosen again and again and again. And he said that fear must be overcome again and again and again. So if you're going to make your big leap and manage your relationships, just know that you have to choose that growth pattern and that growth opportunity again and again and again and again, because the old them will always surface against the new you. Are you with me? And so then, one of the things that we have to be able to do is, again, just recognize what kind of relationship it is. We have to be able to recognize whether or not it is a primary relationship that we are committing ourselves to. You've heard me talk about this before. There are 6 primary relationships. The primary relationships, number 1, your relationship with God. This is a relationship that you don't have to worry about outgrowing. As a matter of fact, it is the primary relationship that is always pulling you to the next great version of yourself. Your primary relationship with God is often a relationship that won't leave you in your comfort zone. Every time you pray, as a matter of fact, the activity of God begins to transform you. And so every time you go into your upper room, you come out just a little bit different. Every time you go into your upper room for prayer and counseling, the taste that you had before you go in start to change just ever so slightly when you come out on the other side. Anybody know what I'm talking about? So your God relationship is one of the primary relationships. One of the second relationships we have is the primary relationship you have with yourself. But you can lose your relationship with yourself in pursuit of external successes. You can lose yourself. You can find yourself doing things you said you would never do. Can I keep it 1,000 with you? Because I was a mama's boy, I always knew that there was goodness in me. My mama loved me too hard for me to really be bad. But the more I grew, Blanche, and the more I explored, and the more I played in the streets, the more I found myself compromising from what I was in that relationship, and I began to morph into something I didn't recognize. And when I looked in the mirror and I looked at eyes that I didn't recognize, I knew I had lost myself in pursuit of street gain. And so I know from experience, you can lose the primary relationship you have with yourself in pursuit of external successes. But your success does not have to cost you your relationship with yourself if you will find yourself in integrity with where you are. Are you with me? One of the next primary relationships we all have is the relationship that we have with our significant other. This is the relationship that Gay is basically focusing on in this 7th chapter. And even your relationship with your significant other doesn't necessarily have to cost you in order to be successful. But here is what it does mean. It does mean that you all have to figure out how to grow together or grow apart. If you can't figure out how to grow together, if one of you grows and the other stays put, just by virtue of what's happening in your soul, if you don't grow together, you will grow apart. Are you with me? Got quiet on me right there. It's all good. It's all good. The next primary relationship we have is the relationship we have with our parent figure. Now, this is a relationship that doesn't necessarily have to cost you your success, because in most cases, somebody say most cases. In most cases, our parental relationships are such that our father and mother want to see us be better than they were. They want us to have a different experience than they had. If they grew up with no food, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that you have some food. Are you with me? But that's not always the case. That's not always the case. That's primarily the parental drive, but that's not always the case. The other primary relationship is the relationship we have with our children or our child figure. And then last but not least, the relationship that we have with our friends. Those are all primary relationships, but the thing we have to be mindful of is the degree to which we can take those relationships to the next level. Now, can I share something with you? The challenge for most people is that when it comes to their relationships, they take their patterns into the relationships. I love the story about this newlywed. And once they got married, they decided to have their first dinner to have the family over at the house. And the bride, so excited about their new home and the family coming to their house for the first time, they were going to make brisket. And when she was in the brisket, she cut the end off of the brisket and put it in the pan and put it in the oven. As the brisket was cooking and came out of the oven, it was simply delicious. But her new husband said, "Baby, the brisket was amazing, but I noticed you cut off the end. That's usually the best part." And she said, "Well, that's the way my mom always did it." And so just a couple weeks later, they were having dinner at Big Mama's house. And interestingly enough, Big Mama made the brisket the same way Mama made the brisket, and the newlywed made the brisket the same way Mama made the brisket. And so being studious, she paid attention and she went over to Big Mama and she said, "Big Mama, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. My husband asked me why it was I cut the end off the brisket, and so I need to know from you why you cut the end off the brisket." She said, "Well, baby, the brisket wouldn't fit in the pot. And so the only reason Big Mama cut it off was because Big Mama didn't have a pot that was large enough." The moral of the story is that we might be taking patterns into our relationships, thinking we're doing something, but not really being clear about thinking about why we're doing it. Are you with me? When it comes to relationships, there was a study done by the Carnegie Institute. It said that 90% of people fail in their life's work because they cannot get along with other people. So if you can get along with people, you don't have to lose your relationships. Are you with me? We are hardwired for relationships, but in order for your relationships to work, you have to work. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do in order to make sure that you have healthy relationships, even as you are preparing yourself to make your big leap, the first thing I want to encourage you to do is take time for yourself. Put that in your notes. Take time for yourself. We heard Christina say earlier, there is a period of time where I set aside to just waste time. It's important that you take time for yourself. Now, you might think that you don't have time, but here's what I want you to know. Your relationships are never with the other person. Your relationships are always only in your mind. So in your relationship with you, you have to be willing to give yourself whatever it is you need in order to be at your best. See, I don't know about you, but there is a saying that we used to say, you can't get blood from a turnip. What does that mean within this context? You can't help me become the best version of myself if you've emptied yourself from your greatness. If you don't take time to restore and fill yourself back, if you don't take time to recharge your batteries, how can you give me a jump if your battery is dead? How can you help me if you won't even take time to help yourself? So let's just talk about the attitude of value and worth. See, when it comes to our attitude, the thing about our attitude, as it is a subconscious function, it will tell us how we feel about a particular thing. The attitude toward a thing always tells you how you estimate that thing. In your opinion, your attitude toward it tells you what it's worth to you. Stay with me. So when it comes to taking time for you, when it comes to taking time for a hot bubble bath, when it comes to if planting and gardening is your thing, when it comes to taking time to just plant and garden, when it comes to doing what you need to do for you, if your attitude is such that you don't have time, what you're really saying to yourself is, I am not worth the time that I keep giving to everybody else. So I just want to ask you, and I want you to relate it to what we talked about last week. Are you worth the time that flows through your life? Are you worth it? I know it's okay to give it to everybody else. One of the things that causes pastoral leaders to think about quitting often is that they're always giving themselves away to others. One of the things that causes ministers to regret their call is that they're always making sacrifices for others. And in making sacrifices for others, they can sometimes come to regret the decisions that they make, even though the decision is consistent with their call. Don't look at the ministers. Keep looking right here. Whether they nod or not, I know we track it. Are you with me? And I can hear Helen Carey saying, we're all ministers. What does that mean? That means at some point we all pour ourselves into other things and other experiences. We give ourselves away, and we don't necessarily take time for ourselves. And if the time is flowing through your life in your primary relationship with you, if you don't deserve the worth of your time, how can you expect someone else to value your time? Why do they keep showing up every time you say no? Because you haven't proven the worth of your time. Why do they call at all hour of the night to complain to you? Because your time is not your time, it's theirs. So then we have to teach people what is the acceptable time. Are you with me? You have to take time for yourself. You have to be willing to make a commitment to your self-care. Somebody say self-care. You have to make a commitment to your self-care. You have to be important to you. Are you with me? Ministers, you have to be important to you. Teachers, public school and church, wherever you teach, you have to be important to you. Social workers, you have to be important to you. Caregivers, you have to be important to you. And listen, I know if you don't do it, it might not get done. But the research shows that managing the difficulty of caring for someone else can also sometimes cost you your health. And I know that's not principle-based. I get that. I get that. I get that that's not principle. But managing your time is your responsibility. Are you with me? Excellent. Let's move to the next point. The next thing that we have to do if we're going to not only be successful in making the leap in our life, in our careers, in the marketplace, but if we're also going to experience the success in our relationships, because here is what I want you to know. Here is what I want you to know. Put this in your notes. The same consciousness that enables you to make the big leap is the consciousness that you live your relationships out of. See, there is no bisected or bifurcated awareness. It is the same awareness. The same awareness that is flooding your life with prosperity is the awareness that can flood your relationships with joy. Just one mind. Are you with me? Second thing we have to be willing to do is honor the emotions in the relationship. Gay Hendricks writes that it's the act of stifling and concealing feelings that causes problems in relationships. I like to say that relationships flourish when people ask the right questions about the conflicts that exist, and they build each other up rather than tear them down. And one of the things about relationships is that obstacles make us emotional. Let me say that again. Obstacles make us emotional. What do you mean by that, Rev? I mean that if you believe that something was supposed to be yours and it doesn't come, you start to feel some kind of way. Are you with me? So we have to be willing to honor the emotion in our relationships. Emotions give us insight into where we're going and how we move. One of the things that makes relationships difficult for some of us is we're trying to make people happy who don't want to be happy. Hear me. You can't make somebody happy who has a subconscious pattern that requires them being unhappy. Hear me, you can't change or reform anyone into happiness who is gaining their goal by being unhappy. If they're happy on the negative side of life, you have to just learn how to deal with the emotion of them being where they are. There was William Faulkner, who was a Nobel Prize winning novelist. He says he was born to be a tramp. He said he was happiest when he had nothing except a trench coat with big pockets and a flask full of wine in them. He said that was the only time he felt right. Now imagine me spending my emotional energy trying to get him to think like I think. When he is happy, come on, talk to me. See, sometimes in relationship, you have to let people be happy where they are. If the relationship is going to be successful, you have to learn how to let people be where they are, or break your back trying to carry them. Yeah. Erykah Badu called them bag ladies or bag men. So you're going to hurt your back dragging all them bags like that. I guess nobody ever told you. Oh my God. Come on, Erykah Badu. She's like, let me see if I can get it. She's like, I guess nobody ever told you. All you must hold on to is you, is you, is you. See, all you can hold on to is you. The only thing you can control is you. So you can't make someone else happy. They have to choose happiness. And irrespective of the nature of the primary relationship, they might not choose it with me or you. Are you with me? And so we've got to be willing to honor the emotion as it presents itself. You have to honor it for what it is. See, here is the thing. Can I help you real quick? In our thinking, we can rethink what we thought. But your feelings don't lie. The emotions don't lie. They will link up with a thought that's consistent with it, but your subjective nature is what it is. When a thing shows up and that's what the feeling is, that's what it is. Now, because we are good practicing Christian metaphysicians, we know how to rework it, but you can only rework yours. You can't rework mine. Are you with me? So you have to be willing to honor the emotion. William Warch wrote that relationships are a school for soul growth. He said the experiences are provided so that we can meet and grow through them. Remember, we have to choose growth again and again and again and again. So that might mean that you have to choose your emotional approach to the people you are in relationship with. Are you with me? God. Let me just give you this last piece on emotion and then we're going to move. Why is it important to honor the emotion? Because we all have, by divine design, mirror neurons. Somebody say mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are the specialized brain cells that can actually sense and mimic the emotions of somebody else. Let me say it to you this way. You ever walked into a house in a wonderful state of mind, or walked into the office in a wonderful state of mind, or walked into the grocery store in a wonderful state of mind, and you encountered someone who was not quite in that wonderful state of mind, and before you knew it, you were mirroring their emotions. Before you knew it, you hadn't planned to argue with nobody all day, and before you know it, you in a full-throated argument. Because we mirror, we can mimic the emotions and the actions of others. If we were just in basic conversation and I started doing like this as we were talking, it might not be too long before as you were talking, you would be doing like this too. Why? Because there are mirror neurons. If I started to clap and as a matter of fact, let's just do it. Let's just clap. Who told you to clap on beat? Do you hear? Do you hear? We're on beat. Who said clap on beat? I said just clap. So you just naturally mirrored my action back to me. I just said clap. I didn't say clap on beat. And so it's important to honor the emotion because in relationship, the purity of the emotion shows up anyway. And we naturally mirror and mimic back what is happening. So if we don't honor it and we try to make it something other than what's presenting, it still surfaces. Are you with me? The last piece is share your touch. And I'm going to close with this. And you've heard me say this before. There was some research done in South America at an orphanage. There were 97 children in this orphanage. And these children were deprived of the touch. Now, it wasn't just a study, there was a lack of funds. There were a number of factors that led to this orphanage's inability to provide the touch. But none of these children received a touch or a cuddle or heard the voice of a mother's comforting words saying that I love you. And after just 3 months, many of the children began to show abnormalities. They started to lose their appetites. They wouldn't sleep well. After a handful of months, they started to deteriorate. 27 of the 97 children transitioned within the first year. But it wasn't that they weren't healthy. It was just that they were not receiving the touch. As you are consistently touching your goals, as you're consistently touching your next level expression, as you're consistently touching and celebrating and praying with the greatness that has been placed in you, as you're consistently touching and praying about where you work or your business, as you're consistently touching the things in your life that need your attention, if the relationships you have are going to be successful, you've got to touch them. There is some power in the touch. When in our scripture reference, what really upset Peter is that the disciple that Jesus loved, it wasn't just that he was in the vicinity, Brian. It's that John was laying up against Jesus, receiving the touch. The woman with the issue, as she was deciding for herself to do everything she could in order to live, the thing that she said to herself is, if I can just, come on, touch it. And so I just want to encourage you to give life into the relationships that are important to you. We're hardwired for relationship. That means we're hardwired to share our touch. Give your life to the relationships that are important to you, and then watch them flourish and grow and expand and give joy into your life, because relationship is one of the ways that God shows us the face of love. God bless you.